Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So I wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about a few things regarding your informative speech and your persuasive speech. And I waited until now to actually record this and post this intentionally because I wanted to talk to you about some important stuff regarding habits when it comes to um, performing in a public situation. But we'll get to that here in a moment. I want to start first by going through the list of things that I noticed in your informative speeches and some of the things that you need to do in order to correct those. So, first of all, regarding the outlines, I noticed a lot of the citations were off in the way of proper formatting. Some of you were missing like the hanging indent that goes on the second and all subsequent lines of each citation. Some of you were putting capitals in places that capitals shouldn't be. Remember, in the title of the document, it is supposed to be in sentence casing, not in title casing. And some of you are missing the retrieved from or a DOI, something along those lines. So make sure that you are using the Valencia website in order to properly cite the information that's in your outline, okay? And that kind of leads to the next aspect of formatting in general was I provided the sample outline, which is located on Canvas under Files. You can absolutely use that as a template to make your outline. So feel free to do that. Also, on the right-hand side of my sample outline, there are notes. Now, you may or may not be able to see them depending on whether or not you have the review button enabled on your Microsoft Word. So if you don't see notes on the right-hand side, make sure you enable that button that allows you to see any notes that the author has created, okay? All right, let's get more to the actual performance of your speeches. So the first thing that I really noticed is the majority of you were sitting down. If you're in a public speaking situation where you are in front of 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever it might be, stand up, okay? You're standing and you are establishing yourself via what's called initial credibility. So how you carry yourself, how you dress, all those things play a really big role in what people are going to think about you. Now, if you've read through your book, you know there are other types of credibility, and there's also something called speech prejudice, which is when an audience member, somebody listening to the speaker, just automatically discredits them based on who they are, what they stand for, which is a really ignorant way to be. It doesn't matter if you don't like somebody, you listen to their message, you listen to what they have to say, okay? And then you can draw your conclusions on whether or not it is accurate. Put the camera back when you are recording, okay? I want to see all of you, all right? I want to see if your hands are fidgeting. I want to see if you're dancing back and forth. A lot of people do that. Stand up, put the camera back, good posture, all those things. Wear something nice. It's written in the syllabus that you are required to have business casual dress on for your informative and your persuasive speech. So make sure that you're doing those things. Those are all things that I'm knocking points off for because of how you're presenting yourself. And be careful that you're not presenting a character that is disinterested, who just doesn't care, okay? Verbal citations. This was the one where a lot of you lost a lot of points because I heard something along the lines of, according to John Smith, 50% of blah, blah, blah is blah, 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 or something like that, right? Who's John Smith? And how old is this article? And where exactly did it come from? Because to me, John Smith is just a name. Or, you know, God forbid you do something like what we see on common, news channels where they just give a statistic or something and don't tell us anything about it. that really is frustrating. And you have to understand that you as a speaker are not a opinion leader, okay? You establish your credibility by citing the people who have actually done the work and done the research, okay? So when you give me information and you don't tell me who the author is, what year it came from, and what institution it was a part of, it's meaningless to me. It doesn't mean anything because you haven't established that that is something that I should even be paying attention to or be listening to. It's easy for anybody to say, well, they said, well, they said, well, they said. Well, cool. Who's they? All right. Be careful with that because to me, and especially as somebody who is a creator of original works and stuff like that, if I've done the work, I want you to give me credit for my work, okay? And if you don't, it's essentially stealing from me. You're not giving me credit. You're trying to pass off an idea or concept, intellectual property as your own when it's not, okay? So make sure that you do that and do it frequently. I say that the minimum citation requirements are 3 from the college databases, right? And that's fair. Can it be done in 3? Yes, it can, okay? Realistically, the average individual is probably going to have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 citations, okay? 3 is just that bare bones minimum that I'm expecting. And like I said, can it be done? Yeah, sure, it can be done if it's done well, okay? But with a lot of the performances that I saw, I didn't even see the bare minimum, okay? So it's great if you put it in your outline, but the audience isn't going to have access to the outline, all right? So, all right, I've got my list of things here that we need to cover. Talked about verbal citations, talked about wear something nice. This was the big one. Stop reading, okay? I'm assuming the majority of you are either using laptops or you're using cell phones in order to record this. And one of the things that I noticed, especially this time around, was when I was watching your performances, most of you were sitting kind of exactly how I am, but it was amazing to see how your eyes were tracking back and forth across the screen, just like you were reading something. And some of you even wore glasses, and you could see that they had an outline or a script right in front of them, okay? Just because you can read something does not make you a good public speaker, okay? And it really is frustrating in a situation like this where it's like it's obvious, okay? I mean, if you look, you can actually kind of see what I'm looking at, which is obviously just a picture of me and the artwork because that's what's up on my screen right now. I would show you if I could. So stop reading, all right? The only thing that you should have in front of you that should be read are note cards for citations or statistics or quotes or something like that. The majority of this is what's called extemporaneous style speaking. It's in your textbook, okay? And it's conversation style speaking, all right? Think of an iceberg. Tip of the iceberg is what you are covering in your speech. The base of the iceberg, which is what you don't see, is everything you actually know about the topic, okay? So obviously, if I'm giving a speech on nuclear physics and I've only got 4 to 6 minutes to give a performance, I'm not going to be able to cover everything that, say, a master's degree graduate or a doctor has, covered for the past 6, 8, 10 years, whatever it might be. So you have to compartmentalize that and shrink it down and say to yourself, okay, this is really important. I think it's really important, but is it so important that I'm going to go over my time and be rude and disrespectful to other people? Because in most public speaking situations, you're not the only person speaking. So that's where you also have to be careful on your time limits. There were some of you who were way over on your time limits, okay? And in a real life scenario, in a real life situation, they're just going to cut you short and kick you off the stage, okay? Because, we've got a list of people who are supposed to be talking about whatever, and as important as your thing is, theirs is just as important, okay? So let's take a look at the next thing. Problem solving skills. Oh my goodness, this is a fun one. All right, so, and unfortunately, it's definitely more difficult in this situation where we don't get to meet face to face, and that, especially in a 6 week class, it's even more difficult. So take the 6 week class, and then combine it with, the fact that we're doing this all online. Um, to me, personal responsibility and problem solving skills and critical thinking skills are incredibly important. And, um, you know, dealing with a problem that you may not necessarily have the answer to is a skill that I think everybody needs to have. And, I'll give you an example of something. So, we live in an all tech world today. Okay, it's 2020. The average individual has, a mobile device in their pocket that is more powerful than computers were that were the size of a room, 60 years ago. Okay, so you also have access to all of humanity's knowledge via the internet. Okay, and especially in the way of this class, you have a textbook, you have files located under the files on Canvas, and then, of course, as I said before, you have access to, the internet, which gives you pretty much the answer to every question in existence. Um, if you don't know how to do something, learn how to do it, okay? And it's kind of, this balance. Yes, I am your instructor. And yes, it is my responsibility to teach you things and discuss things with you and kind of portray my expectations to you. But the other side to it is you need to have some common sense in how you actually approach these questions that may come up as you're performing and as you're prepping to perform your speeches. I'll give you a more real world example of something, okay? We needed to put a fence up in our backyard, okay? I've never put up a fence before, I could pay somebody $1,000, $2,000 to have them come out and do it and just have it done. Or I can go online, watch a few videos, do a little bit of practicing, and hey, guess what? Now I've got a fence up in my backyard and it looks better than that pre-made stuff that you would just buy from Lowe's or Home Depot. Okay? The point is that the answers to pretty much every question in existence are out there if you just search for them. All right? And I've always been a firm believer to never just rely on one source to get your answers, okay? Because everybody's experience is different and the interpretation of that experience is different. So when you have a problem and you don't know the answer, go talk to people, do a web search, go on databases, go on YouTube, look around, see what other people have gone through, see what their experience was, because frankly, experience is one of those things that can't be faked, okay? There's an old saying that says good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment, okay? So if everything is going smoothly, if everything is easy and just being handed to you, you're probably not learning anything, okay? If everything is going horribly and you're having to look things up along the way and make corrections along the way, then you're probably learning a whole lot. And more importantly, you're probably not going to make that same mistake again in the future, okay? That is why typically in Western culture, in American culture, we will pay a lot of money to somebody who is usually older, but incredibly experienced, because we know that that experience cannot be faked, okay? I really want you to think about this, okay? Think about it from the way of maybe your speech is too long, Or maybe you watched your performance and you're not standing still. Maybe you watched your performance and you're reading. This is a recorded video. Theoretically, you could record this as many times as you wanted to, and I would never know. I don't know if it's the first version or the 100th version. Okay? So, in my mind, if I'm going to be presenting, if I'm going to be performing something and I know I'm going to be turning it in for a grade, why wouldn't I record it one time, look at it, say, oh my gosh, look at what I'm doing, this is horrible, and then go back and re-record it? There's no guideline in the syllabus that says you can't re-record your submission before you submit it. The only thing you can do is chop up the video and give me parts and pieces of different performances to fake an alternate performance, okay? But for me personally, and this is coming across as a student, I would watch myself. I'd be looking at videos that I've recorded myself and say, man, I'm never going to do that again. That was bad, okay? And that's how you get better. That's how you get good. You know, redundancy is a great teacher. You know, I'm a musician. I've been a musician my entire life. There's a thing called muscle memory, okay? Get to the point where you don't have to think about doing it and then do it, okay? So these are some of the pieces of information, some tips that I wanted to give you. But I want you to think about all these things. I want you to take all these different things into consideration and don't make the same mistakes over and over and over again. All right, it's like walking down a street and falling in a hole, and then the next day you walk down the street and you fall in the same hole again. It's like, okay, well, the first time it was my fault. Second time it's like, first time it was the hole's fault. Second time it's my fault. Okay, so on that note, if you have any questions or anything, make sure that you message me, and I will gladly do what I can to get back to you. And keep your eye out for another video that I am going to cover some information talking about slideshows. All right, I will talk to you later.